I'm Eugenio Galdon, and I am the President and CEO of Grupo Multitel, an investment group. In 1980, I was appointed by pure chance as the Chief of Staff of a brand new Spanish Prime Minister. I was then active in politics, more from a technical perspective, more from an economic policy perspective for a few years. When I left politics in 85, I went into the media world. I worked for the Prisa Group, the editor of El País, and I was in charge of the radio networks and then of launching their television, Canal Plus, in Spain. At some point in time, I decided it was time for me to achieve my dream, which is to work for myself, start my own business. I wasn't a very rich person at that point in time, but managed to convince others and to launch broadband in Spain that, from my perspective, was the new thing to bet on. And I developed the leading Spanish cable operator. At the end of the day, we bought our competitors out and we managed to consolidate the cable industry and the broadband industry in Spain. We had strong competitors like Telefónica and others, but we finally sold to Vodafone. And since then, I have slightly reoriented my career. The sort of business model in which I am interested is more about using technology for disintermediation, for disintermediating sectors, be it the electric sector, a sector with huge intermediation, it can be heavily and seriously optimized, or be it the third sector, whatever sector. It's using technology really for a better life, for a more efficient life, for approaching, for getting closer together the consumer and the producer. And this is what led me somehow to entity data Everest, where I was appointed for some time, member of the board of directors. I had to resign because I launched the telecom project in Mexico, and I really wanted to pass a contract with entity data Everest, what eventually I did, and I thought that I had a conflict of interest, so I resigned. But they did ask me why shouldn't I become the chairman of their foundation, of the Entity Data Foundation. What was for me a real pleasure to do. It is through the Entity Data Everest Foundation that I got to know about teaming. It's a beautiful combination of two principles that are both very interesting. First one, the technology applied to the third sector. Technology for a better world. Never such words can be better used. It's technology to make philanthropy, solidarity more efficient, more reliable, more transparent. All urgent needs in the third sector. This was what Entity Data Everest brought into the picture. But then, just by chance, there was a Dutch guy at that point in time in Barcelona with an apparently weird idea. He was claiming that it would be great to have a system to organize millions of micro donations, because people should learn to donate and should get used to the fact that we can all of us express our sense of human solidarity, and that philanthropy is not a matter of the richest of this world, that this is a matter for all of us, and that every one of us can help, and that all of us together, we can change relevant aspects of this world. But this idea of micro-donation, be it €1, $1, £1, or 20 Mexican pesos, or and so on and so forth, this idea is unfeasible unless it counts with a very sophisticated, or it is supported by a very sophisticated and complex technology platform, because it's zillions of transactions that need to be handled in a very efficient way if we want a micro donation to be really effective. I can tell you that last year we donated €6,200,000. This year it will be over €7 million. Again, the integrity of what we receive as donations. And over time, we've seen that we have to make this thing grow. Actually, growth has come even without us looking for it. It's amazing, because all of a sudden, in certain countries, things started to happen without such things being provoked or even marketed by us. We could see at some point in time that there were French groups doing social causes in France, but because of the Eurozone facilities in this case, they were using us, a Spanish social crowdfunding platform, to channel donations, precisely because it was very efficient. 100% of every donation, and you cannot say no. It's very empathic. Huh? So same happened all of a sudden in Germany, Italy, and then we realized, said, look, guys, we must get serious on our international expansion. But this required on our side a whole technology reshuffling that has taken the best of the last 2 years, 2 difficult years in the middle of the COVID, but where we have completely renewed the technology platform with strong support of entity data evidence on the one hand, and on the other hand, we made a fantastic and a very generous agreement with Amazon Web Services, and so as to be cloud hosted and accessible from anywhere in the world, and so as to have a very reliable, not easily hackable system. Or when I say not easily, we spent a lot of time and effort, both entity data evidence and AWS in terms of security, cybersecurity, and so on and so forth. And this is what has now, come out of the oven, and it's allowing us to think bigger. So if you ask me what's next, I think we have no right to keep this beautiful, marvelous thing for ourselves. We must make it grow in many other places, and this is our next big one. Our aspiration has been to bring the advantages of technology in the field of disintermediation to the third sector. And one of our plans is not to keep this technology for us. If we want to disintermediate, we should disintermediate ourselves. And we are in conversations with entity data, Everest, and with AWS to try and persuade them that we should be the happy victims of disintermediation by giving out our technology, right? And giving out our technology for free. Because in this sector, there's no competition. All hands on deck, and it's not enough. So this is, I think, a core idea in Everest. The other one being this whole concept of democratizing philanthropy. And the two together, they work so well because the one demonstrates the validity of the other. You would think in principle that donating €1 per cause per month is the less efficient way of donation you can imagine. And we demonstrate that this full euro, 100% of this euro, gets to the right place. Right now through controls, but shortly just by applying technology, just by applying technologies to trace all financial movements within our group. And you can think that within 4 or 5 years, there will be software available whereby donators, small donators, can track the full course of their donation until this breakfast of this Ethiopian girl that I was talking about earlier. This is perfectly possible. It's not expensive. So that's what we're aiming at. More than our ambitions are much more than doubling that. As I said, sometimes as a tree does, you need to grow first under earth, and then you start growing and showing up your real strength. This is what we've been doing with the help of entity data and also of AWS in the last 2 years. And now we have a very good news, which is that we've reached a fantastic understanding with the entity data once again, that under the brand Tech for Sustainability, sort of the concept of technology for a better world, so to speak, they will help us establishing ourselves in all the countries where they are operating right now. Indeed, in 17 countries, 11 European countries, and 6 Latin American countries. This is a fantastic step forward. We will, we already have done the technical work of developing local sites for such countries. The whole idea is in a first phase for entity data through its employees, client base, and related persons that will go larger and larger to promote social projects of a technological base. This connects with what I was just saying, how to bring technology to sustainability at the end of the day. And they are especially focused in digital education, uh, to help the digital, help close the digital divide, inclusion, diversity, environment, of course, but again, technology can do so much, as we know, and finally, human rights. And in such fields, to begin with, we will help with our ecosystem publish projects, social causes, and fund them. Initially, with local funding of the respective country, but our idea is to make the key projects accessible to our total teamer base. The beauty of the entity data approach is that it solves a question that I've made many times, and sorry for mentioning a specific sector, but if a bank finances a philharmonic orchestra, it's great, it's very good, and I'm very much in favor of it. I'm a fan of classic music and opera, so I'm a beneficiary of it. Having said that, what the hell has a bank to add to classic music? I mean, it's not directly related. Yeah, it will get some notoriety, and but this is a question that I have made many times. What I found brilliant in the case of entity data evidence is that they were giving their very much demonstrated skills for free to social causes. And so they know about this people. In this case, yes, they're specialists in this kind of classical music, okay? So, in going through this way, which has not to be the only one, but it should inspire many a company, and I will give a few examples. In doing this, they obtain quite a whole array of different goals that go far and beyond just goals of notoriety or whatever other kind of inspiration. First of all, they help society with the best they do have. The best they do have is not their money. The best they do have is their skills. And sometimes it's hard for companies to give their skills for free because they feel that it can create a precedent or so on and so forth, and they need some courage to take this step forward, and they had the courage to do it. Second, they inspire their folks, and society is changing. It's not only about what I'm being paid, it's about for whom I'm working. What the hell is this company doing in this world? And what the hell am I doing in such a company? And by having the company offer its employees such a possibility, which is you work at the beginning, it was paid hours, but at some point in time, they offer the combination of you can give a free hour of you, and we will complete it with 1 or 2 hours of your paid hours. So it's fantastic because the company arrives at the dream where a company should be, which is that the company really partners with its employees in solving a relevant issue in this world. And this sense of partnership is a sense of sharing. It's the best demonstration of sharing values. I know these guys for now maybe 15 years or so, and this has made them different from the very beginning. When they started, Evans started as a consulting company here in Spain. They were well known for being a real consultancy company that had created a foundation through which they were, for instance, they had a program called Pulsar to help socially or girls, very capable girls, but in risk of social exclusion, to overcome difficulties and to sort of break their glass ceiling and try to get the education they were capable of. And it was not normal to have a technology company doing things like this many years ago. And they were also, the way I knew Everly's entity data at that point in time was precisely in a tricky situation where transparency and commitment and respect of the law was absolutely essential. So they were sort of an exception already quite a few years ago, or maybe 10, 15 years ago. And over time, this has been materialized, and I think that their role in the Everest, in the Teaming Foundation, sort of was a confirming element. They've materialized this impulse in giving what they do best, giving for free what they do best. And which is what they're doing right now with teaming once again. They're putting all their infrastructure in 16 countries to give us a big first push towards international development. Because something you can perspire and feel within the entity data group is their global approach. I was once in Japan explaining teaming, trying to, and Japanese, they're not very used to foundations and to this kind of thing. And I was told, you are going to preach in the desert, so you'll see. Well, there is in entity data, maybe because they're in so many countries, entity data has contaminated the rest of the world in the good sense, and the rest of the world has also contaminated entity data in the good sense as well. And I could find loads of receptivity, and as a matter of fact, they've supported us from the very beginning. One would expect for the good companies to take the leadership in this change. It's clear that in a world where extreme poverty may eventually, if not disappear, be limited to a fraction of what it is now over the next 50 years. In such a world, not all has to be done by the government. And not all will be done by the government if society isn't really implied in the problems of others. And I think that companies should be aware of this, and they have to commit themselves, but more than anything, have their own people commit and create channels for the commitment of their people to be projected in trying to solve the issues of this world. This is somehow what's behind the attitude of certain companies. We talked about entity data today a lot, but I know many other companies that try their best in this direction, not to be driven by society, but to lead the movement towards a livable world. I may say I hate the word, hate is too big word, but I don't like the word sustainability. Sustainable, it's not ambitious. The world has not to be just sustainable. The world has to be better, with all the letters, better. This is not for a sustainable world. It is for a better world. And I think being an animal, old or existing for the last 4 million years on the surface of Earth, the last 200 years have been of an immense interaction and immense damage done by us on this world where we live. And there is no other world in the vicinity where we could move to. So we better don't think in terms as company leaders, and I apply it to myself, we don't think just in terms of sustainability, but more aggressively in how we can organize this whole group that is going to stabilize somewhere around 10 billion people, how we organize with the resources that we do have, not just to sustain it like this, but to make it better and to keep a social consensus that is absolutely essential for a better world. This is why I think that the 2030 goals, they are so important because it put the stress on a social consensus. I mean, as a result of this COVID crisis, the inequality has risen in such a way that in many parts of this world, it's threatening a minimum social consensus. It has to be dealt with. This is also a matter of the companies. It's also a matter of the leaders of this world.